Hello friends, I am Rishayan. You know, I stopped working for the rich man when I was approximately in my mid-40s, 45 years old. I live a free life. Any of you that may have been following some of my videos or that have been following me for years on YouTube know that I always just spoke of how I live free. And so I'm going to explain today exactly when I started and how I decided to leave the rat race, stop working for the rich man, which I encourage people today. Don't work for the rich man. Don't ask for higher wages. Stop working for the rich man. Work for yourself. Look for the way to work for yourself. And I did that. Unfortunately, it took me all the way to 45 before I finally got enough sense to say, hey, I don't need to do this. I'm going to just stop doing this and now have to find my own way to eat, right? But I had worked in every kind of job in the U.S. I'd worked dishwasher, which incidentally I liked. I actually liked washing dishes. I didn't like the conditions because dishwashers, anybody that has been a dishwasher or knows what it's like to be a dishwasher, in a lot of places, unless you're a dishwasher in a small restaurant, small privately owned restaurant, they treat you like dog. You're the lowest man on the totem pole. You're treated horribly. You're given a mountain of work to do, a never-ending amount of work to do. And you're paid the least there. It's just horrible. It's the conditions that they put on the dishwasher, not the actual job. I like sweeping, I like mopping, I like doing everything, but they rush you. They don't allow you to do it correctly and cleanly, and it's just poor organization, poor administration of dishwashers, and a lot of abuse, which makes it an unattractive job. Not that the actual job is unattractive. It's not. I worked as clerks, I worked in theaters, I worked for Kmart, I worked for Target, I worked for Wendy's. I can't even remember all the places I worked over the years up until the age of 45. But finally, when I got into my mid-40s, you know, I made the decision. I said, you know, hey, this is it. I'm not working for the rich man anymore. I mean, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to find my own way to do this, find my own way to survive. I had already had quite a bit of experience hoboing, I call it, you know, living out, camping in a, when I say living out, not in the woods, I mean in the woods, but in the woods in urban areas, not, you know, way out in the boondocks, in urban areas and little patches, like a homeless person, which basically is what I was. So I was accustomed to that. I knew that type of lifestyle and I could blend it in, but I thought, now I'm not going to work as a regular job. I'm going to be very assertive or aggressive in looking for work. And so I developed a plan. I call it my WKBG plan, work bag, WKBG plan, developing the phrase that pays, that I developed, you know, the words that I was going to use to get work, to eat, to get work, to earn money. And it was successful. I successfully was able to support myself, save enough money to eat, save enough money to pay my round trip to Mexico. And of course, those of you that know that I've lived in Mexico off and on for the last 40 years. So this was basically during the summer season, the warmer season, during the winter season. I was in Mexico where I owned a small store, which when I say that, don't get visions of grandeur, you know, that I owned a 7-Eleven. No, it was a little shack, a one-room shack made out of coconut branches that I didn't even have electricity or water or anything in it. I sold candy, I sold a little bit of groceries in a small village, and very successfully so. That's what I mean. But it was my store. I worked from sunrise to sunset every day and enjoyed it and loved it, and it supported me. But what I do during the rainy season is come to the U.S. and do my WKBG, you know, starting like about age 45 up to the time that I had my YouTube channel and that I started receiving Social Security. And so I would go to every single business. I mean, every single business. I don't care if it was an insurance agency, if it was a beauty salon, you know. Started going to auto repair shops and auto parts shops. Now, the auto parts shops I continued to go to. They very rarely would give me, because they were mostly chains, and they very rarely would give me not even a dime and never let me pick up trash on their lot. Sometimes they did, but very rarely. Auto repair shops would actually give me work, but I started to figure out the work they gave me was very dirty, very greasy, and I'd get dirty right quick, and you know, and I didn't have any place to wash up, and it wasn't worth it. It became not worth it you know, not that the work was hard, it was mostly just picking up trash and whatever, but it was very dirty and greasy work, because auto repair shops are dirty, greasy places, and it wasn't worth getting that dirty and then not being able to work the rest of the day because I was just too dirty, right? And not having access to water in some of the cities that I was living in, whatever. So I stopped doing auto, and then I also had an incident, and it was at an auto repair shop where they cheated me. You know, American businessmen are crooks. They're criminals, a lot of them. And this place, the owner or manager or whatever he was, you know, he says, oh yeah, he says, go ahead, you know, here's a bag, go ahead and pick up all the trash in the lot. Well, this lot had an unbelievable amount of trash. It looks like nobody had ever picked up the trash on their lot for years. And I did it, and it took me over an hour, maybe an hour and a half, in the hot sun, because it was hot, I remember. And I'm going around with this bag, and the workers there are laughing at me. Really, I mean, Americans are cruel assholes, you know, laughing at me and pointing at me, but, you know, did my job, did everything, take the trash, went back in, but the guy wasn't there, the supervisor wasn't there, and there was just an employee there. And I said, well, what do you want me to do with this trash? And they said, well, just throw it in the dumpster, it's okay. Because sometimes they wanted to check. Some places wouldn't, because they would never look and see that I was actually working. And there's some places I learned by experience that if they had me pick up trash, and I filled up these bags with trash, and I threw it in the dumpster, and then I went to collect the $1 that they gave me, they would sometimes say, well, I didn't see you picking up trash. They're real fucking assholes, you know, really, these people. You know, and so I learned that, well, I'm gonna bring the bag of trash into the office, into the business, so you can say, look, I did the work. Here's the bag of trash. So I didn't do it until they told me to throw it in the dumpster. So I did, come back, and I'm standing there, and he said, well, what do you want? I said, well, get paid, maybe, you know, I mean, the guy gave me this odd job, get paid. Oh, well, he's not here. I don't give a fuck, you know? I mean, he contracted me verbally and gave me this job, and, you know, I can't wait here all day. I've got to continue, you know, they're only going to pay me $1 or $2 or $3. It was very little if they'd pay, you know, but I need that $1 or $2, you know. I said, as I remember, they did finally pay me, but it did put a very bad taste in my mouth. Auto repair shops, they're jerks. I mean, anybody that's had to bring your car to get fixed, I mean, we hear all the complaints, know that they're crooked. And I'm sure there's good mechanics, and if there's any good mechanic watching this, you know, I'm sorry, I apologize, but a lot of these mechanics and auto repair shops are crooks. You know, they come there, you know, well, I won't go further than that. So I stopped doing that. It was just not worth it. Beauty salons, on the other hand, became the best places to go to. You say, a beauty salon? What did you do at a beauty salon? Common sense, baby. You know, my God is a concept. It's not the Bible. It's not the mythical Jesus Christ. It's the concept of what is natural in this world. Nature, logic, science, and human love. Those are things that man has never invented, could not invent. That's what makes up the concept of God. And so logically, if we use common sense and logic, even a beauty salon or insurance office, what do they have? They got windows, and those windows need to be cleaned, and they don't all have contracts to clean those windows. Some of those windows are hardly dirty. They got doors. The doors are constantly dirty. The doors were dirty, full of finger smudges all over the door. They'd give me a quarter. They'd give me 50 cents at that time just to wash their door. I always carried my little spray bottle and my roll of Bounty, you know. And they have bathrooms. They don't clean the bathrooms. You'd be surprised at these bathrooms, you know. Clean their bathroom. They have trash to be taken out. They have the things, all of these things that, well, that's their normal job, but they don't do it. And here's somebody just willing to do these small little tasks. Maybe it'll take me 15 minutes, maybe take me a half hour, but, you know, for $1, great, you know. And logical places would give me the work. Beauty salons would not only mostly had me wash their windows, that was the most common thing, but they were very generous. They would almost always give me work. So I liked going to beauty salons. They were nice people. I remember that one beauty salon that I went to that had me wash their windows. They when I got done, and I think I don't remember clearly, but it was only a couple windows, and you know, I was happy they gave me $1 or $2. You know, I worked very cheap, and when I got done, they gave me this little envelope, and in the envelope were not a lot of money, but there were several bills from there were several stylists in this beauty salon that were working. They all contributed a little bit, plus even some of the customers that watched me washing the windows also contributed money. That was a nice thing. You know, nice things that happen. Americans are great people. There's Americans that are big assholes, but there are good Americans, thank God. And I also did this in Mexico too, and I have another video. I think it's in Spanish. I don't know if it's in Spanish or English, but I recently oh no, I put it on my Facebook page, and I remember. But there's another video talking about my experiences doing basically the same thing in Mexico. But this is what I do, you know. So, you know, I'd sleep in. I always carried my backpack, my tent, and I think back on it, man. of course, I'm old and every part of my body hurts and I get tired a little bit. But I was more healthier back then, you might say. I was younger, and I think, oh man, how did I do that? But I did. I mean, I'd walk miles and miles in a day, and carrying a backpack and a tent and a sleeping bag, and as well as my spray bottle and everything, and doing my odd jobs. But I did it. And I ate every single day, and I never worked more than 3 or 4 hours. It was rare that I worked past 12 noon. I had to wait some places until 11 o'clock for the restaurants, because most restaurants in big cities don't open until 11 o'clock. So, you know, but from 11 to 12, I'd get somebody would give me a meal. Now, there were times that nobody would help me out. I'm trying to think. One area was in, I believe it's Pearland, Texas. Pearland, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. There was a Walmart and HEB and a huge commercial development along the road where I was at, and there were some woods nearby. That's where I camped. And I thought, wow, I got all these restaurants. Somebody's going to give me some work. I'm going to be eating good here. None of them, nobody. I mean, it was bad luck day, because it's usually not that bad. But none. I went to every single restaurant, every single business in that commercial strip. But it was a commercial strip on 4 corners. There was a lot. You know, there must have been 50 businesses there at least. They all said no. I thought, well, there must be homeless around here somewhere. They're already burnt out with the homeless, you know, or something. But, you know, bad luck. But usually I didn't have that luck. Especially in smaller cities and smaller towns, people were very, very nice. In fact, it's worth mentioning State College, PA. I'm not doing this anymore, so I don't care. If you're homeless and you say, "Oh, well, I'm going to go there," go ahead. I don't care. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm an old man, so I'll reveal. I wouldn't have revealed this years ago, but I'll reveal it now. State College was the best place ever, anywhere in the U.S. Everybody helped. Everybody helped me. And it was one, and the people were nice about it too. It's a very, and there's a lot of business because it's a college town. I think it's what is it, Penn State that's there or something. You know, it was just a great place, fortunately, in all those years, I'm 70 now, so you can figure out how long ago this was. This is when I was in my mid to late 40s, into my 50s. You know, it wasn't. It's against the law to do odd jobs. Today, it's even worse than ever. I mean, I'm sure I'd be afraid to go out and do today what I did back then, because they'd probably call the cops on me right away. But you know, they never really called the cops on me, because I wasn't actually begging for money. You know, I rarely, if ever, begged for money. It was always asking for work, legitimately, for money. Well, why do you work? You work for money. You work for money. You know, a few places would be real assholes. You know, I had places say, "Oh, well, you have to fill out an application." I said, "I'm only asking for an odd job. I'm only asking to pick up trash or clean the bathroom or crush the boxes that you have piled up there that look like shit in the back of your business. I'll crush those boxes. Give me $1, you know." "Oh, well, you know, you got to fill out an application for that." You know, okay, have a nice day. Went on to the next place. Some place were just stupid. But I did, and I remember it was, what's the name of that Chinese restaurant? I've eaten there recently. That chain Chinese restaurant. Chinese restaurants never gave me work, never. They're owned by Chinese, but this is a chain that, oh, what's it, Panda something, Panda Kitchen or something like that. I remember distinctly, and they had good food at that time. I'd gone to the places, and the guy, but this was maybe towards the end of my work bag career, you know, said, "No, it's against the law. You know, we're not allowed to hire people in casual labor because the government says everybody has to be registered, everybody has to pay taxes. Even if you work for 15 minutes, you got to be blah, blah, blah." This is the absurdity, the lack of logic that causes all the problems we have today in the United States. There's no logic, there's no common sense. It's right out the door. But anyways, the guy gave me food. That's why I remember it, because he was kind. You know, he was the manager, I guess, and he was kind, you know, and he explained it to me. And you know, I knew that was becoming more and more of a problem. When I first started in my mid-40s to do work begging, a lot of places gave me odd jobs. They were still giving me odd jobs. A lot of places, including even chain restaurants and stuff. I remember McDonald's had me clean the doors, yeah, and gave me food. I don't know if she gave me money, but I remember she gave me food. But, well, as the government cracks down, becomes more and more criminal, you know, they're just afraid. They can't, no, insurance and this and that. They come up with some excuse. Okay, today I'd be afraid. But nobody ever called the cops except one time. And it was a young white punk. And I remember distinctly. And it was in San Antonio, Texas. And I don't know what kind of restaurant it was. I think it was probably a chain, but I don't remember. But I had gone there, asked for an odd job, and he became aggressive. He became aggressive with me, saying that, no, you got to fill out an application. I said, I'm just asking for an odd job. As I became more of an expert at doing this, I would look before I'd go into these places, anything that needed to be done. A bunch of cigarette butts over there, trash on the lot, windows are dirty. Okay, so I go and give them suggestions, and that really helped when I suggested doing these different things. And I don't know, I told him, I do this, and he insisted, oh, well, you got to fill an application. Well, no, I mean, I don't work for the rich man. I didn't tell him that, but I'll do an odd job, a casual labor, but no, and they're not going to hire me. I don't have an address. I'm like, why waste my time? I'll waste your time. And he became aggressive, but that's all right. I left. Completely forgot about it. Continued doing my WKBG, I called it, my work begging, working for food and money. Went to underneath a bridge, got food somewhere, and had a little bunch of money that I already earned. Finished my day. Usually I could finish it in a couple hours. Had, once I earned 10, 15 bucks and had food, that was my day. And went under this bridge and was eating my food and completely forgot about this asshole. Went back, I was standing at the bus stop, and the San Antonio police car comes up and stops right at the bus stop where I was at, rolls down his window, and he said, come here. Aggressively. Just wait. Yeah, they don't know me. I said, what? You know what? He says, were you at such and such a place? I said, no. Well, you think I'm going to tell him? I knew right away. I figured this out because when they said the name of the place, were you at such and such a place? Are you begging? I think he said it all like simultaneously, 2, 3 things. Are you out here begging, harassing people? Are you at such and such a place? And I said, no. I'm waiting for the bus. He just looks at me and drives off. What can he do? You think, oh, you're stupid. Oh, yeah, I'm harassing people. Oh, yeah, I'm looking for work. Oh, yeah, fuck them. Shit, stupid. But he was a Hispanic officer, and Hispanic officer quite a bit brighter than most other races that are police officers. But anyways, but that's the only time that I remember that that I was ever potentially called the police because I was looking for work. Like I said, I wouldn't do this today. I wouldn't do it today because the country is worse than ever before. People are more ignorant than ever before. The fascism is stronger than ever before. That you don't want to be free. The work ethic. Work for the rich man ethic. It's not work ethic. Get a job, bum. I remember one time a lady did tell me, so it was at a gas station. I don't remember exactly what the thing was. But it was the first and only time that I ever remember somebody actually saying this, and she said it exactly like that. She says, get a job, bum. It made me laugh. I started laughing. I broke out laughing. I said, because it hit me so funny. Nobody ever told me that. I mean, I heard it, you hear the people saying that, but it never happened except one time it actually, and I think it was in Texas, but I don't remember where it was. But it made me laugh. People are so fucking stupid, man, really. But that's what I did. And I was free. And I was free. If I didn't want to work, if I felt sick, I hardly ever got sick, but if I felt sick or I just didn't want to go do it, I had, money saved up. I mean, to me, if I had 50, 100 bucks saved up in cash money, that was a lot of money for me at that time. Had food, could go to Walmart and buy my food. At that time, it was cheap. Today, it's expensive. I was okay. And I was free. And I was free. I was free when I was in Mexico, but I was now free in the U.S. too. And then YouTube came along. I started my YouTube channel in the late 2000s, like around 2009, 2010, and that became a way that I could work for myself, because I don't work for YouTube, that I could work for myself as much or as little as I want and continue to live as a free person. Have a nice day, people. I am Rishayan.